Hello, my fellow YouTuber and person who is interested in hang gliding. Welcome to Gone Gliding. My name is Jason, and this is video number 3 in a 5-part series of videos to help you prepare for the Hang 2 written test that is administered by the United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, or USHPA. If you happen to be jumping in this series of videos at video 2, 3, 4, or 5, go back to video 1 and watch these chronologically because I think that it will help you. Although I guess you could skip around these if you need to. Anyway, I would love some feedback. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel. It really helps out the channel and growing and just spreading the message about hang gliding and hopefully getting more people interested in this sport. Leave a comment, give me that thumbs up button. The support just really helps the channel overall and supports the sport of hang gliding. Thanks for watching and good luck on your Hang 2 test. Can't wait for you to pass so that you can come fly with me. All right, future Hang 2 pilots. Well, welcome to episode 3. We're going to kick this off with question number 22. This one says, because it can cause problems for all pilots to fly in strong winds, especially beginners, it is good to know that if the wind doubles in speed or velocity, it will have what kind of force or power or effect on the glider. All right, our options here are A, 4 times as much, B, twice as much, C, the same, or D, half as much. So go ahead, think about your answer, pause it, come back, I'll give you the answer, and then we will review it. All right, welcome back. So the answer to question number 22 is A, 4 times as much force or power on the glider for a doubling of speed. Okay, we can find this answer on page 83 of the book. If we check out page 83 here, right under the yellow highlighted section, it says the force of the wind increases sharply as it picks up speed. The force of the wind increases as the square of its velocity. So if you guys are like me, you need Albert Einstein in here to translate that for you into mathematics. But in simple terms, this means that if the speed of the wind doubles, it will exert 4 times as much force. And if the wind speed increases 4 times, it will exert 16 times as much force. So given those two mathematical equations, I think you can now do all the math every time the wind, does some certain action in speed. You'll be able to calculate how much additional force it will do because you guys are freaking geniuses. So hopefully that helps you on this one. And let's go on to question number 23. All right, question number 23 says, novice foot launch pilots should limit to launching in crosswinds of blank or less, and winds that are no stronger than 5 or 6 miles per hour. So our options are A, 90 degrees, B, 45 degrees, C, 20 degrees, D, 5 degrees, or E, 0 degrees. Okay, so think about how you would answer this on the Hang 2 test. Pause the video, think about that, and then come back and we will give the answer. Welcome back, everybody. All right, so number 23, the answer is C, 20 degrees. So novice foot launch pilots should limit to launching in crosswinds of 20 degrees or less and winds that are no stronger than 5 or 6 miles per hour. We find the answer to this question on page 78 of the book. And on page 78, it says, as a rule of thumb, beginner or novice pilots should limit themselves to crosswinds of 20 degrees or less and no stronger than 5 or 6 miles per hour. That's pretty cut and dry, so I don't think we need any additional explanation on this one, but if you do have other questions, please put them in the comments below and I will make sure to respond to you. Let's go on to question number 24. All right, so question number 24 says, flying straight or near straight into headwinds will blank your glide. So what will that do to your glide? Option A is have no effect. Option B is lengthen. Option C is shorten. Or option D is stop. So think about how you would answer this question on the Hang 2 test. Pause it and then rejoin us for the answer. Okay, welcome back. So the answer to number 24 is that flying straight or near straight into headwinds will shorten your glide. So answer C, and we can find that in the book on pages 140 through 142. And here it says wind direction and velocity. The wind can make a significant difference in the speed that you fly. If you have to fly into a significant headwind, for example, you will have to fly faster than best glide speed to make headway. So if we go look at the diagrams on page 141, we can see that in diagram A, there's no wind. So if you look at B and C, they have wind, either a headwind or a tailwind. So in A, there's no wind, and you see how far the glider can glide. In diagram B, the pilot is flying against a headwind and has a very short glide compared to diagram A. And then in diagram C, we are now flying with a tailwind, and you see that the glide is much further than it is in A or B. Now, this might be simple for a lot of you. This one was actually difficult for me because I also like to sail sailboats. And with a sailboat, you want to sail into a headwind. You're sort of cross to the headwind, but that is what provides lift for the boat to glide through the water. And so this one kind of tripped me up at first. So maybe that'll happen to you if you're also a sailor, but when you're flying a hang glider, the wind works quite differently. The tailwind will make you go further. The headwind will shorten or cut your glide. In fact, if you look back on my lesson number 12 on my channel, I actually get to experience this for the first time. And that video is titled Escalator Landing and Principles of Flight. And there was a significant headwind on the training hill that day, and I had an elevator type landing in the hang glider, which was awesome, super cool. But it definitely reinforced the understanding and the principle of this aspect of flight into my mind, because having that wind come at me, it provides lift, which is great, but then you just kind of sort of hover in place when that headwind's coming at you, unless you can get enough, if you have enough altitude to pull your base bar in to move forward through that headwind. But still, if you turned 180 and now had a tailwind, you would fly a significant distance compared to trying to fly into that headwind. So hoping that helps you guys on this one, and I'm sure you guys are going to get this one right. Let's go on to 25. All right, we're doing great, everybody. And we are moving on to 25 here. It says, doing a very thorough pre-flight inspection includes carefully and completely checking your blank to ensure that everything is in perfect working order. All right, so our options for the answer here are A, carabiner and harness, B, glider, C, parachute bridle and container, or D, all of the above. Now, I don't want to insult you guys and think that any of you would get this one wrong, but I guess it could be a tiny bit tricky. It could be a little bit tricky, potentially. Obviously, your thorough pre-flight inspection is going to pre-flight your glider. If you don't do a pre-flight of your glider, there's some really big issues, and you shouldn't even be working on the written test studying right now. So I guess the true question is, will a pre-flight also include carabiner and harness, parachute bridle and container? Okay, so I would say that anytime you have a question like this, similar to this, whatever, default to safety, safety, safety. If you're not doing a pre-flight of your carabiner, your harness, your parachute, your helmet, your gloves, your Vario, your phone, anything that you're going to be taking with you on the flight that you want to be working in a certain way, and to where if it's working wrong, you're going to get distracted or potentially put yourself in a sticky situation, have an accident, whatever, you're missing the boat. So yes, the answer is D, all of the above. I'm sure you all got that one correct. You should have the book that I've referenced and that I will continue to reference for all of this, because that's where all of like these answers come from. But in chapter 6, pages 113 through 118 discuss pre-flight, and they go into the complete pre-flight, and it talks mostly about doing your pre-flight of the hang glider, what to check for, like literally every single part, checking the cell, checking your king post, your control frame, your wires, all of it, battens and all of that. And then as it goes into page 115, it talks about a trim adjustment. And then it continues on page 116, talking about transporting your glider. But page 117 talks about cleaning the glider, how to care for your parachute and your harness. And then going on to page 118 talks about caring for your helmet, your instruments. And so really a pre-flight literally includes checking everything that you're going to be flying with, including yourself. Are you in good physical health? Are you in good mental health that day to be flying? Or are you in a bad mood or distracted somehow? These are all things you want to check. So D, all of the above. You guys are going to do great. Let's go on to number 26. All right, aviators, we're at number 26. It says, when trying new maneuvers, it is important to fly in familiar and comfortable conditions, because even small differences in wind velocity, direction, or smoothness could possibly make it harder to control the glider than conditions you may be accustomed to. All right, so our answers are either true or false. All right, so how would you answer this on the Hang 2 test? Pause it, think about it, and then rejoin us. And welcome back. All right, the answer to number 26 is true. It's A. And yes, there is a reference to this somewhere in the book, but I am attributing this to common sense to answer this question. You never ever want to try anything new or outside your comfort zone or your skill set in a different area, in a different type of wind, or just really anything different. In fact, one of the things my instructor said is never change more than one thing at a time when you're flying. So for example, we did all of our training in an apron harness, and then we went to a pod harness. You don't want to try your brand new pod harness, your helmet, and your winter gloves all at the same time, which I did. And that made it more difficult and did not allow me to fully focus on just my harness or just my helmet or just flying in winter gloves. And so everybody's going to make mistakes. Everybody at some point is going to disregard something that they were taught to do as safety or the right thing. And that's never the right thing to do. Be smart, be safe, use common sense. You're never going to want to go out, if you've only been flying in 4-mile-an-hour winds on your training hill, you don't want to start doing turns now on a day that has 12-mile-an-hour winds. So you want to be very careful about any sort of changes in the weather, the wind, anything that brings in different conditions that you're not used to. If there's turbulence or thermals or rotor or something where you're flying, like that's not the place to start trying to do new crazy tricks, if you're a higher Hang 2 or Hang 3 or something like that. So apply common sense, apply safety, and this one will be pretty easy for you guys. All right, good job. Let's go on to question number 27. All right, so question number 27 says, before you launch your glider, it is important to have a flight plan to ensure a safe flight because Option A, you need to arrive at the landing zone with enough altitude. Option B, you should be familiar with the LZ and secondary LZ options as well. C, you need to prepare for something changing during flight, such as more sink than expected, stronger winds, etc., and know how to handle the situation. Or D, all of the above. Okay, so you can pause this one, think about how you'd answer it, and then come back and we'll go over the answer. Welcome back. The answer to question 27 is D, all of the above. And we can find this on page 154 of the book, where it talks about pre-flight planning. This is in chapter 8, which is talking all about preparing for high altitude flying. And so this kind of stuff is very important, more so than a training hill, although this does apply to your training hill as well. You need to know where you're going to launch from, where you're planning to land, what the wind direction is, all of those types of things. But here on page 154, under pre-flight planning, it says, as on every flight, you must make a full flight plan. Discuss the flight with your instructor, then plan exactly what you'll do during every stage of the flight from takeoff to landing. Okay, so then down in the next paragraph, near the highlighted section, it says you should perform only gentle maneuvers and plan the flight so you arrive above the landing field with plenty of altitude. That definitely becomes more important when you're making cross-country flights or just longer flights to your LZ, and you need to have altitude to set up a good landing. And then it goes on, this ensures you won't miss the field. If there's any wind when you fly, don't let yourself drift downwind. So it goes on to talk a little bit more about these types of things you want to look for. But the point here is that it is absolutely critical to have a flight plan and understand every piece of what is in your plan, almost like you're imagining exactly what's going to happen, and you try to make that happen. But you need to have your contingency plans, plan B, plan C, plan D, for whatever might happen. Change in the wind, change in any other aspect of the weather, getting attacked by a hawk mid-flight, maybe flying too close to other paragliders or hang gliders that maybe you didn't expect to be there. There's just so many things. Maybe a fire broke out beneath you and you have to divert somewhere else. So these are all kinds of things you want to think through and be prepared for so that you don't have to spend too much time thinking about it while you're also trying to safely fly your glider. All right, great job. Let's go on to question number 28. All right, we're at number 28. So we're already past halfway through the questions on this video. And I think you guys are doing awesome. Hope you're finding this very helpful. This is a great time to hit that thumbs up button if you haven't done so, or subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and make sure you get notified when there's new videos coming up. All right, number 28. It is mandatory that you always do a hang check once you have your hang glider positioned and ready to launch. The three most critical things to check are: option A, that you are hooked in. Option B, that your leg straps are on. C, hanging correct distance above your control bar. D, the windsock is blowing in the right direction. Or E, your GoPro is recording for your YouTube channel. All right, all of these are important, especially E, and you're making a channel called Gone Gliding. You gotta have that GoPro going. But that's not part of your hang check. So what do you think is the answer or answers in question number 28? So give that a thought in your mind and pause it, and then we will rejoin and go over the answer. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, the answer to question 28 is A, B, and C. These are all the correct answer for what is mandatory to do on a hang check. And we will find this in the book on page 43. Here on page 43, under hooking in, and I added and hang check, you can see here what is necessary in this bottom section under never launch without doing a hang check. And there are 3 little bullet points there that I have highlighted in yellow that are the answers to number 28. So one of them is that the carabiner is hooked into both the main and the backup hang loops. So that's checking that you're hooked in. Option B for your leg straps being on is the last one here where it says your legs are through both leg loops. And then the last one for hanging correct distance above the bar is the middle bullet point on page 43 saying that you're the correct height above the bar. So, you know, if you're going through training or you have completed your training, you probably remember how your instructor told you to use 1 or 2 fists between your chin or your chest and the base bar or something similar to that. So you're checking your hang distance. That is very critical and very important. If you don't know why, go look at my video where I fly at Crawford Mountain, one of my first flights, definitely my first hang glider road trip flight. And my harness I thought was set up right in my hang check, but apparently it was hanging too high. And that caused me a lot of issues. I ended up having to fly with my feet dangling out of my pod harness, which is part of creating some drag and cutting my glide. So, and it kind of helped me induce pilot-induced oscillation as well. So it's very important to have everything configured correctly. The leg straps being on, if you, like me, through training are learning in an apron harness, it's very easy to know that your legs are in because that's the first thing you do to get in your apron harness is you step through those loops in the leg straps, right? And then you pull them up, you tighten them, make them wherever comfortable you are and that the harness is on safely. Now, when you start flying in a pod harness, it's quite different. The pod harness that I have is the Woody Valley Libero harness, and you have to buckle the leg straps on. So first thing I do is I put my arms through the loops to kind of wear the harness, and then I have to clip in my leg straps. There are pilots who have forgotten to do that. And so, you know, that's a critical step. That can get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to not have a major incident, it is certainly possible to have a minor incident, or at least for that to be very distracting while you're flying, which is always a bad thing. You don't want that. So you got to, you know, strap your leg straps on, check your hang distance, check that you're hooked in. You remember those 3 points, you'll get this question right on the test. All right. Good job, everybody. Let's go to number 29. All right, welcome to question number 29. It says, flying to a distant field may sometimes require that you fly an airspeed that will maximize the distance that you cover over the ground. In calmer air, what airspeed results in providing you the longest distance flight? All right, so from our answer options, we know that it's going to have something to do with our speed, right? So option A, minimum sink speed. Option B, best glide speed. Option C is trim speed. And option D says faster than best L over D speed. And that stands for lift over drag. And that is another way of saying glide speed or best glide speed. Okay, so think about how you would answer this question on the test and then pause it and rejoin us for the answer. Welcome back. All right, the answer to question 29 is best glide speed, option B. All right, so your best glide speed is the speed that results in providing you the longest distance flight in calm air. We find this on page 50 in the book, and we've got all of these options actually here on page 50. We've got a stall speed and its definition. We've got minimum sink speed, we've got trim speed, and we've got best glide speed. So let's read best glide speed since we know that's our answer. It says, this is the speed at which the glider will glide the farthest from a given height in calm air, okay? And then it goes on to explain a little bit that the L over D stands for lift over drag. It does go into that a little bit more later in the book, but we don't need to complicate this one. Minimum sink speed is just slower than your stall speed, and it's a good speed to fly when you're in a thermal and you're getting lift. because you want to fly quick in sinking air and you want to fly slow in your rising air so that you can gain altitude, okay? And we'll probably talk more about that in another question. Your stall speed, of course, is the speed at which you're going to stall. And your trim speed is, if you've seen some of those YouTube videos where hang glider pilots take their hands off the base bar, the control bar, and the glider is just gliding on its own, usually very calm when you see pilots doing that, they are flying at trim speed. So yes, I think that answers everything on this one. If you have more questions, need more explanation or anything else on this one, definitely look over this chapter as well as the chapter that goes into it a little bit more and provides more detail, or also hit me up in the comments below. I'm definitely happy to try to give more explanation if needed. Let's move on to question number 30. All right, question number 30. You are flying in calm air. Minimum sink speed is the air at which A, your hang glider descends as slowly as possible through the air. B, your hang glider stays in the air for the minimum amount of time. Or C, your hang glider wants to fly with your hands off the base bar, no input from the pilot. All right, so think again about your answer on this one and pause it and then replay the video and we'll go over the answer. And welcome back. Okay, the answer to question number 30 is A. Your hang glider descends as slowly as possible through the air. That is your minimum sink speed. And we do find that on page 50. We talked a little bit about it on the last question. But here it says minimum sink speed is slightly above stall speed. This is the speed at which the glider sinks most slowly toward the ground. Advanced pilots fly at a minimum sink speed to take advantage of rising air, right? So like those thermals that they're catching, they want to fly slowly in them so they can get as much lift as possible before they leave those thermals, but only when they have safe altitude. So you don't want to fly at minimum sink speed when you're close to the ground. You don't want to ever be near a stall when you're close to the ground. You want to have speed so you have your roll control and that you're really in control of the glider. All right. Great job. I hope that explains it fully. I definitely recommend you read all of these chapters in the book, obviously, and pour over these definitions. You guys are going to do great on this test. Let's move on to question number 31. All right, question number 31. It says, if the angle of attack of the glider is increased too much, the glider will do what? Okay, so our options here are A, fall, B, luff, C, stall, or D, increase greatly in altitude. Okay, so again, pause the video and then rejoin us when you are ready with your answer. Welcome back. And the answer to question number 31 is C, a stall. Okay, so if you increase the angle of attack too much, you're going to end up in a stall. We find the answer in the book on page 29. And in the center section here, it's all about angle of attack, which we have talked about in previous videos for this Hang 2 test already. And we know that if we increase the angle of attack, that means we're pointing the nose up towards the relative, in relation towards the relative wind. And if we decrease the angle of attack, then we're pitching the nose down in relation to the relative wind, right? This is not in relation to the horizon. It is in relation to the relative wind and how we're flying. So nose up, nose down, pitch down. We do that pushing that control bar in or out. Now down here in the yellow section, this is where the actual answer comes from in the book, where it says, if you increase the angle of attack too far, okay, so that means nose up, the airstream won't be able to flow smoothly over the wing and it will stop producing lift. This is known as a stall. Now remember, an easy way to think about this angle of attack is think about landing. Generally, when you land, you flare at some point to end that landing attempt. And when you flare, you're pushing the down tubes or your base bar out away from you and up, increasing that angle of attack so much that you're almost creating a brick wall for the wind to just slam against, creating that stop, okay? So that's why it says, you know, if you increase the angle of attack too far, the airstream won't be able to flow smoothly over the wing. And when you flare, that wind just hits that glider, boom, you stop, you land, and hopefully you do all that safely. So hope that one helps you guys. And we just have one more to go. So let's go hit question number 32. Oh man, so sad we're on the last question of this video. All right, thanks for hanging in there, guys. If you've made it all the way, definitely appreciate that. And it's gonna really help you on this Hang 2 test. Okay, number 32, if your glider won't respond when you attempt to turn, you are most likely doing what? Option A is flying too slowly or cross-controlling. Option B is flying too slowly or flying too fast. Option C is not banking the glider enough or flying too fast. And option D, not coordinating the turn or you're cross-controlling the glider. All right, so give this one some thought. You can pause the video and think through it and then rejoin for the answer. But think about how you would honestly answer this on the Hang 2 test. And welcome back. Okay. So if your glider's not responding when you attempt to turn, you're putting in those roll inputs, those roll controls, and it's very sluggish to respond or doesn't respond at all, you are most likely A, flying too slowly, or you're cross-controlling, okay? So the answer here is on page 52 of the book. And when we look at page 52, there's a really good diagram in here, and there's also text that gives us the answers. So it's talking about these problems with course corrections. Flying too slow is there in bold, and cross-controlling is there in bold. And here it says, for flying too slow, if you're flying too slowly, the glider will not respond crisply to your roll commands, right? And so we know that we need speed. Speed is your friend. Speed is what gives you more control in the hang glider. If you're going really slow and you have a lot of altitude, yes, you can coordinate a turn, you can turn very slowly, but you want to make sure that you got a lot of altitude if you're doing that. If you're down in a landing zone, you're working on your downwind base final, something like that, you want to have speed so that you have control and you get immediate response to those roll inputs. It also says here for cross-controlling that it's a common problem, and you've probably seen this in a lot of YouTube videos as you've been learning about it, or maybe you've experienced it in the hang glider that you're flying already. I have experienced it both in training and in some of my, first Hang 2 flights. I have noticed myself cross-controlling, especially as I'm getting used to being in a pod harness after being in an apron harness for all my lessons. It certainly feels different not having your legs dangling down, and you have to kind of relearn how to get your body to not do the cross-controlling, because it's very easy to do in a pod harness and probably a cocoon harness, which I have not flown in, but I imagine feels similar, and it's easy to do. So you have to make sure that you're really trying to kick with your hips, but even sometimes as you're getting used to the motions, when you're trying to kick with your hips, sometimes your feet don't follow, and sometimes it actually kind of helps to tell yourself, kick your feet over there that way. You just want to make sure that your head, your hips, your feet are all moving either to the left or to the right when you're putting in those roll inputs, so that they actually provide the control input to the glider that you're trying to do. If, however, you're cross-controlling, the glider is not going to respond to you, or it's going to do the opposite of what you want it to do. So the best thing to do is get out there and fly and get the feel of it and work on it. Because if you're like me and you've gone from an apron harness to a pod harness and you're just starting to fly in it, it's going to feel a little bit weird. And so you just have to get out there and practice. It's like anything else. Guys, you've done great. I really appreciate you sticking in on this video. Really hope that this series of Hang 2 written test videos are helping you. Don't forget to read the book. Do not just use this video as your only study guide, okay? I appreciate the vote of confidence if you're doing that, but I do not recommend that. You want to know what's in this book. There's a lot of additional detail, explanation, information that I don't even get to cover in this set of videos. And so do not forget to read the book. Get out there and study hard. You guys are going to do great, and I cannot wait for you to pass your Hang 2 test. Come back, comment on these videos, let me know how you did, if you passed on your first or second or third attempt or whatever it took you. And again, hope to see you on the next one, and can't wait for you to get your Hang 2 so you can come fly with me.